Today you'll be painting using your watercolors, your Kandinsky painting. We started the drawing last week on watercolor paper, and there were components that you had to have. If you missed that lesson, you need to go back, watch the video so that you end up with all the components. Today you're just going to need your watercolors, your cup of water, a paper towel, your drawing, and then something to put underneath it so it protects your table. Okay. For this, we are going to stick to nice bright colors. You can certainly mix colors if you like, but we're going to stay away from using pure black and pure brown. If you want to use them to mix to darken colors, you can, but be really careful. And I would always have something next to me to test color on. Now remember, we can do different kinds of things. So a wash would be where it's really solid, filling the space. We won't have any dry brushing on there. We could do shapes that have value changes, but it should be really obvious and intentional, meaning, oops, I didn't do that. I did that by accident. Most of our shapes, I think, will probably be pretty solid, but you might also have some that you do as gradients, where you'll put two colors together and mix in between. If you want to come back later and dry brush some small patterns on there, you can. You can also use, I'd stay away probably from wet and wet, because this is something where we're going to control the water, but you could do something like blot. If you had large enough areas, you could do a two-color blot. Okay, so let's start first, and what we're going to want to do is this. We are going to want to paint our lighter values first, and then we're also going to want to never paint wet next to wet. Now, even though I made, like, this is a square, this is a triangle, anytime it's intersected by a line means that a different color will appear on the other side of the line. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to paint this square. Now, when I paint, it's maybe been a while since we do this, I'm wetting my brush, I'm wetting my watercolor just a little bit, I'm not over flooding it. And when I put my brush down, I put my brush down away from the lines, and then I brush out to the lines. So I'm putting my brush down here, and then I'm brushing my way, always watching the tip of my brush, okay? And I would keep your water and your paint close together. So I'm going to paint here, and I'm going to push out to that edge. Again, I'm always watching where the tip of my brush is. If I overpaint, especially if I'm doing with a light color, I can either, you saw me just wipe with my finger to push it back into the shape, or I can use my paper towel and blot it back up. Okay, so there's my first shape. Now, I'm not going to paint any of these shapes around it because this is wet right now. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to go into this shape, and I'm going to paint here. So at no point am I painting a shape that I have already painted, or painting around it. So I'm never putting a wet shape next to a wet shape. And I'm going to put some yellow in this bottom corner here too. So I'm using some consistency, meaning if I use a color in one place, I'm going to use it in at least another one or two places. And I can come back later if I think I need to add more. I'm going to do this space here. So okay, and I'm going to do right up to this line. All right, now I'm going to change colors. No, I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do one more down here. I'm going to do this space right here, and then I'm going to change to my next color. Now, when I change to my next color, I'm rinsing my brush really well. I'm never jamming it to the bottom of the cup. I'm always here still painting with the tip. Never trying to overpaint, nice and clean. And then I'm going to go with my next color. So my next color is going to be orange. Now, when I start painting with this orange, I'm again not ever putting it in a space right next to that yellow. I'm going to come in here and paint this space right here. So again, putting my brush down, and on these heavier lines, I mean, it's okay if I touch them. If I really alter the color of them, I can always come back with the black Sharpie on top and paint again. At no point should my paint look thick and pasty. If your paint becomes thick and pasty, you've allowed the color to sit in there too long. I don't want paint there. All right, now I'm going to put another orange one here, and then I'm going to do a fade in one of these. I'm going to do orange here in this section. Again, it's not touching anything that's already wet. Sorry. No, Joy, no. Okay, now I'm going to do this. So I'm going to get my one, this over here. I'm going to do a fade. So I'm going to do a fade from yellow to green. And I'm going to do that in, I'm going to pick a decent size shape. So I'm going to do it in this shape right here. Yeah, I'm going to go right here. So I'm going to paint the inside of this thing yellow. And then I'm going to rinse my brush. And I'm going to paint the outer edge green. So I clean my brush. I'm going to bring green into this outer edge. And then once I paint in the outer edge, I'm going to mix where the two seam together. So in here, I'm going to clean my brush because I don't want to drag too much green in. I'm going to drag some of that green in to create sort of a lime green in the middle. And then I'm going to mix it out to the edge. And I'm going to make sure that I mix. I don't want to leave it all sort of, I want it to be darker on the edges because I want to retain that darker edge. But in the middle, I want it to be like evenly changed and faded to that lighter green if I can. And it's a matter of sometimes taking the water out of your brush and smoothing. All right, so there's a gradient from darker green to lighter yellow in the middle. Now, there's another way I might do a gradient. I'm going to do a gradient in this spot right here. And I'm going to do a green fading to blue. So I'm going to start with green on this side. And again, if I want to make my green lighter, I could mix colors in the lid of my watercolor mix. But I'm going to go green here. And then I'm going to be fading. So I'm not adding any more color there. And I'm going to fade green to blue. So blue is going to go in this outer shape. And then I'm going to, where the two mix and overlap, I will let them mix together. So I'm going to come to here. And this line here is going to be darkest down at the base of my shape. So my darkest blue I want down here. And I've got a lot of water here, so I'm going to blot to control some of that water. I should have probably blotted my brush first. But I'm going to put more pigment down here as it fades up and across. It's going to fade into the green. There's my blue. And here's where the two are meeting. And I seam them in between so they look like they fade. I don't want to see a line anywhere. Like if you're doing a fade somewhere, I don't want to see a huge line one color to the next. If you are not good at mixing the fades, just do solids. Okay, so I'm going to keep working my way around again, never putting wet next to wet. I'm going to do another green to blue fade here. So in this shape, clean the brush, limit the amount of water, do my blue down here. Still a lot of water. Pick a little bit of that up. Okay. And then I'm going to go a little more pigment. Blue fading to green. Okay. And as I work my way around, if I need to turn my painting so I'm never letting my hand touch anything that's wet, I can do that. But every shape on here will get painted. And think about contrast. So in areas like where I have one color sitting next to another, I want it to contrast enough. Like I don't ever want to go, is that the same color? So if I'm trying to create a good contrasting color, I might, so I have this nice thick line in the background here. I'm going to do red. And so I'm going to come into this background shape. And since I have this big heavy line, I'm not in any danger of it touching. And I'm going to paint this background shape behind all this stuff red. So the background, in effect, just becomes another shape. And that is it. You will neatly paint your entire painting. You will have the entire period to do it. And if you need Friday's time, you will have that as well. When you're done, submit your work, and you're done.